Hello guys and welcome to another update of an attribute stacker invoker. I wanted to start using just Flicker Strike, but because of the way how it's worded, you cannot generate power charges while using it. But don't worry, as you can see in the background, we are able to flicker almost 95% of the mapping. So that means that we still have to use some other skill or just stop flickering for a while to get more power charges. I went with a Tempest Fury as the solution, mainly because of how fast you can move while using it. However, I try to use it as little as possible since I don't really like it and I want to use just Flicker Strike. So Flicker Strike works that when you use it, you teleport to an enemy and strike them. And that's it. However, things get interesting when you have any power charges. So if you have any power charges, Flicker Strike will consume them. And in addition, it will gain 285% more attack speed and it will perform an additional strikes to nearby enemies. This is why you really want to make sure that before you use Flicker Strike you have any power charge. I mean, you still can use Flicker Strike without power charges, but it won't be as smooth as with them. Another thing that's very important is to make sure that your Flicker Strike has 20 quality and you are using perpetual charge, because with 20% quality and perpetual charge, your Flicker Strike have 55% to not consume charge when you use it, but it will count as using them. So you will get the extra attack speed and you will strike additional enemies, but you still will have your power charges. So that's why we sometimes can just flicker through the entire map. Also guys, I would like to invite you to my Discord channel where you can ask questions and probably I or someone else will answer you. And on my Twitch when I will start streaming on first big update. How do we generate power charges, you may ask? We use Profane Ritual linked to a cast on crit, and let me explain how it works. So Profane Ritual is a skill that marks a corpse and after 2 seconds the corpse is removed and we are given a power charge, and you can actually see the power charges flying to us, those little purple balls. Unfortunately, as I mentioned before, when we are using a Flicker Strike we cannot generate power charges. So we have to stop flickering for a second or even less, and after we grab the charges we can just go again. Okay, I'm going to cast on crit. When we are critting an enemy, we gain some energy, and when we have enough energy, the Profane Ritual is triggered, and after 2 seconds we get the power charges. And from my testing, this is the best way to generate power charges if you want to just use Flicker Strike, because you kill mobs with Flicker Strike, and then the Profane Ritual is triggered, and we just stop flickering for a second or even less, then the charges come to us, and we can just go flicker again. So you don't have to use any other skill to generate charges. Just flicker, stop for a second, then just go again with flicker. And because we crit so often, that's a very good power charge sustain method. Okay, so going into Heralds, I played with all of them and with some various combinations, and the results are that if you want to just flicker more and have no idea what is going on your screen, just go with Herald of Thunder and Herald of Ash. It will provide good enough clear, but unlike Herald of Ice, it won't kill few screens away from you, so you still will have some mobs to flicker to them. But if you wanna have cool explosions and less flickering, for example, just jumping to mob and exploding like 2 screens away, and just sometimes hit crazy flickers, go with Herald of Thunder and Herald of Ice, but make sure that Herald of Ice is supported with concentrated effect, because you want to reduce some of the area of effect that Herald of Ice has, so some monsters will survive the explosion and you will have monsters to jump to. For bosses setup, as you can see, I've got here the second pillar of the Cage Guard. On the X, weapon swap. On the swap, I've got the Casson Shock. When I swap the weapons, Greenfist and Herald of Ash turn offs and Casson Shock turn on. And as you can see, I'm using this here, used with weapon set. I just check the Casson Shock to use with just the weapon set 1. And Greenfist and Herald of the Ash just to use with weapon set 2. And Casson Crit and Herald of Thunder I'm just leaving on both. I'm just pressing X, as you can see it changes. And to make sure that you are on good weapon set, you can just look right there on the left corner, Casson Shock and Casson Crit, then you are on bossing setup, and if you've got these auras you are on mapping setup. You want to spec this node before going to boss, and you have to grab resonance, and unlucky you can't do that with weapon skill points. Before going into the boss you unspec this node and just grab the resonance. How we are generating power charges for bosses is with Sniper's Mark, and as you can see it marks the target and the next critical hit consumes the mark and gives us frenzy charge. But to activate our charge stuff, to get fire damage for extra damage for Bell, we need to have power charges, so we have to take the resonance. Going to Ascendancy, we take Let Me Through Grace to get spirit for all of our auras. But if you don't have good enough armor like mine, I have really good roll. Even that, I still have to use the 2 iron runes to get even more evasion energy shield, get 180 spirit. But if you don't have that good armor, you can just take Against the Darkness that gives spirit per notable. Or you can just get the Morror Invictus with, let's say, all elemental resistances and spirit per socket rune. Then we have I'm the Blizzard, the Soul Springs Eternal. That's okay because it gives us more energy generation. It's mainly just to make Profane Ritual more consistent. If you have lower damage, you can just go with I'm the Thunder for 10% extra damage, or even the Unbound Avatar. And last, sunder my enemies to ignore enemy monster elemental resistances. Okay, and going further into the tree, we are now taking all the power charge nodes. So you want to grab this, and this as well. And we are no longer using the controlled metamorphosis jewel to get this magnetification, because I anointed it on my amulet and I dropped the subterfuge mask. Because right now I've got 44% evasion and I'm not really dying in mobs. I'm not really getting hit by any mobs. With Flicker, at this point in this build, I'm just pressing Flicker and just killing all the mobs. I didn't really need it, so I went with more damage. And I've got Against the Darkness with extra cold damage and increased strength. You can get, let's say, 4% increased dex and 4% increased diligence. They are really expensive. I'm still using this jewel. It's the Timeless Jewel. Lots of people have problems buying this jewel. As you can see there, it's stated Line of Vorana, and you want to buy this exact one. The number here doesn't matter. Don't even look at the number. The only thing that matters is this Line of Vorana. Has to be Vorana. If you buy any other Olorov, or I don't know, the same Medved, I think is the third one, you just won't get this bonus here. So make sure that you are buying one with Line of Vorana. And now going to my skills. So Flicker Strike, make sure that you have 20% quality on it. And I supported with Innervate, just because to get extra lightning damage, Perpetual Charge, Primal Alignment and Close Combat. Then I've got Tempest Fury, mainly to moving and applying shocks. So I've got Martial Tempo, Rage, Conduction and Overcharge. It's pretty good to apply higher shocks on bosses to get more damage. Charge Staff, I'm using it only on bosses to get some fire damage on Bell, to give it more extra damage. And it's supported with Fire Infusion and Ignition. Then we've got the Tempest Bell with Overabundance, Elemental Focus, Execute and Concentrated Effect. Then Herald of Thunder, and even if I'm not playing with Herald of Ice, I'm still using Herald of Thunder to freeze enemies, just to make that I get the Ice Bite bonus. So I'm using Herald of Thunder mainly to get the Ice Bite bonus for 35% extra cold damage. So it's with support with Ice Bite, Cold Infusion, Glaciation and Ambush. Then I've got the Casson Critical with Profane Ritual, Energy Retention, Profusion, Fast Forward and Arcade Tempo. Then Herald of Ash with Magnified Effect and Persistence, Grim Fist, and Casson Shock on bossing with Eye of Winter, Inspiration, Impetus and Sniper's Mark. And yeah, if you want to play with Herald of Ice instead of Herald of Ash, then just go with Herald of Ice, Lightning Infusion, Cold Mastery, Conduction and Concentrated Effect. But keep in mind that if you want to Flicker, Herald of Thunder and Herald of Ash feels much better than Herald of Thunder and Herald of Ice. Okay, and going to the gear, so I did very little changes. So first are that I'm using now iron runes in my chest, just to get some more evasion and energy shield, just to hit the 180 spirit. Another thing that I changed is that I anointed Magnetification on amulet, and I'm using the Meltic Maelstrom Ultimate Mana Flask. That's all for the changes on my gear. But anyways, I will just show it really quickly. So Pillar of the Cage Guard with Attack Speed Corruption, and for the bossing I've got the 12% increased weapon damage corruption. Then I've got the Hoa Gloves with 1 to 12 lightning damage corruption, Ingenuity Belt, some boots with Dex and Intelligence. I might change these boots to get even more rarity, because I can get like 30 more rarity on the boots. Rings are the same like in the last video. Some attributes and rarity. Chest is Morror Invictus, 5% increased attributes and 10% elemental resistances. Amulet, energy shield, rarity and attributes. And then the helmet, some resistances and mainly high energy shield.